Have you ever attempted to achieve something in life? Maybe it's an important goal that you have, or perhaps it's some kind of positive change you'd like to experience. But for some reason, there's a part of you that just seems to keep on getting in the way, and you just keep self-sabotaging. So you take 2 steps forward and then 5 million steps back, and it can just be super frustrating. Well, if that's ever happened to you, then you're probably wondering, what the heck is going on? Well, in this video, I'd like to take a look at what is actually happening when we self-sabotage. Hi, I'm Stephen Burns from Mind School, and in this video I want to talk about what is going on when we self-sabotage. Now clearly this is a big subject, there's lots of ways to look at it, many different layers to it. So in particular I'd like to look at self-sabotage from an NLP perspective. Now just in case you don't know, NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and it's a body of information about how the human mind works, how we think, feel and change. And within NLP there's a whole range of tools, techniques and processes that can be used to create quick and sustainable positive change in our lives. So we're going to look at self-sabotage from that perspective. So let's get started, shall we? So what is going on when we self-sabotage? Well, when we get down to it, from an NLP perspective, it's where we have 2 or more parts of ourselves or aspects of our personality that are after something good, but they end up competing against each other. So they end up in conflict. And this is often referred to in NLP as a parts conflict. Because when you get down to it, human beings, we are complex creatures. We are whole, of course, we are one organism, but we have lots of different facets to our personality. We have lots of different aspects of what we often call parts to whatever it is that we are doing. And sometimes these parts don't agree, or they're attempting to get something good for us, and they end up in conflict with another part. And when that happens, we start to experience this kind of inner turmoil, this inner conflict, and that, of course, then leads to self-sabotage. To give you an analogy, say if you take like an organization or like a company, say, for example, like Google. Google has one single overall mission. It's one single entity. However, within Google, it has lots of different departments. It'll have the tech department, it'll have the manufacturing, the procurement. I don't know too much about Google's business, but it'll have, many different departments that all have their own individual jobs. Now, of course, ideally, all of these departments should be singing from the same hymn sheet. They should all be doing the things that they do in order to achieve the overall vision that Google is after. But sometimes, and this is the same in all workplaces, sometimes these departments don't always agree. Or maybe they have a different opinion on where the company should be going. Or maybe they do something that is then in conflict with another department, and they end up, you get this kind of thing where they're competing against each other. So maybe they're not as aligned as what they could be, they're not singing from the same hymn sheet. Well, when it comes to our psychology, it kind of works in a similar way. We are one single organism. We are whole as a human being, but we also have lots of different needs. We have lots of different things that we're attempting to achieve and preserve. And sometimes, the parts that are responsible for achieving those things, they can end up being in conflict, and that's when we eventually end up feeling this experience of self-sabotage. So just to give you a couple of examples, a very simple one first of all. Say, for example, you had the goal of losing weight and being fit and healthy, but every time you sat down on the couch in the evening when you were watching Netflix, you could hear the cakes from the fridge calling you. They were like, "Stephen, Stephen, eat me, eat me." The cakes don't call, by the way, it's just an analogy, but it can sometimes feel that way because you really love cake too much. That's an example where a part of you wants to exercise, a part of you wants to get fit and healthy, but there's another part of you that wants to eat cake because it enjoys eating cake. It feels good to eat cake. It gives you a sense of comfort, or it gives you, something else. So what happens is you've got these 2 parts that are actually attempting to get something good, but they're in conflict, so you experience that inner turmoil and you're like, should I be fit or should I eat cake? Sometimes the cake wins and it feels like we're self-sabotaging. So that's a basic example, but this can affect us on a much deeper and more profound level. And also these parts conflicts can sometimes be subconscious as well. We're certainly aware of the consequences and how bad it can feel when we're in inner conflict like this, but we're not really aware of what's going on at the deeper layers of our psychology. One classic example is when we get afraid of success. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. Most of the time when that is happening is there's a part of us that wants success, whatever that means to you, but there's another part of us that's afraid of failure, or the part is afraid of being judged harshly. What might happen if people tear us down and we're deemed to be not good enough? So what happens is you go for success, but secretly, subconsciously, you end up, sabotaging yourself from the background, because ultimately there's a lot of potential pain attached to actually achieving that success, or what you have to do in order to make it a reality. You also see this in relationships. Sometimes when people are getting into relationships, they value connection, but they also value their own personal freedom. This is becoming definitely more and more popular these days. So they get into a relationship, they're feeling this connection, one becomes two, or two becomes one, should I say, and then all of a sudden they start to feel like they're losing something. It's like, oh my God, I've got this connection, but I feel like I'm losing my freedom. So you end up again with this parts conflict that causes self-sabotage within the relationship. So that is the general idea of it, self-sabotage from an NLP perspective. So you're maybe wondering, okay, so I've got one of these, how do I actually resolve it? Well, the way to resolve it is by doing something called a parts integration. Now, that is definitely for another video. There's quite a bit to that, or potentially even a series of videos. But just to give you a general overview, what you want to do is you want to look at the two competing parts and work from the premise that they're actually both after something really, really good. And then you want to negotiate between the two parts and get some kind of agreement. And when you get that agreement, the inner conflict suddenly just ceases, and then the self-sabotage naturally disappears as a result. So if we take, for example, the weight loss, the one if you have a goal to lose weight and get fit, but you can't help but eat cakes, then if you look at that, it seems like the cake part is actually attempting just to mess you up. But actually, it's most likely after something good. In fact, it is after something good. Maybe to lose weight, that would allow you to feel really good about yourself. That's what that part is after. But the eating cake part is maybe after safety or security. Maybe it's a comfort eating thing. So you want to kind of appreciate that actually both are after, really good things, and they can actually be in some kind of agreement. And like I said, when you do that, they stop conflicting, that inner fight disappears, and the self-sabotage just naturally dissipates as a result. So that is a general idea. Like I said, most likely going to be some more videos on this subject if that's something that would interest you. If you like this video, it would be amazing if you could subscribe to the channel just so that you can keep up to date with all future Mind School uploads as they drop. So that's all from me for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later on.